Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, it's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Snowpiercer. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I like how we kind of have that, I always forget the term, in media res. Basically, you start, not necessarily at the end, but at least partway through, and then you rewind to the beginning. So we starting kind of like near the end of the episode, and then we rewind back to kind of the beginning. I thought it was kind of interesting getting Zara's perspective on a lot of things. It's like, right, obviously when you're born, talking about their daughter, you're going to hear a lot of things about your dad and about me and how I went and did all that I could just basically to ensure your survival. So basically hoping that the world that Andre is able to kind of build, that the world that's out there, that all that they've done and all that she's done that may have caused issues for certain people will all be worth it in the end for the better world that she's going to be born into. So obviously we're coming down to that time that the baby's about to be born. I do love the kind of getting to know the different naming conventions. Like third, you put names in a whole bunch of names in the trees. Basically, people leave names of people that were important to them that they lost. And basically, Zara and Andre look through the tree and find a name that jumps out to them. Whereas in the tale, it was about, a baby being born. You pick the closest city that you're near. In Winnie's case, Winnipeg. So that was kind of interesting. So. But obviously when Zara's water breaks, it's kind of pretty cool to see Andre kind of flipping out a little bit. He's just like, okay. And she's like, and Zara's like, people are acting like I'm having a heart attack. He's like, no, don't worry about it. I'm having a heart attack for the both of us. So it's just kind of like, move out of the way, baby time. So go to the Dr. Hedwood. She has to be the one to look after everything, considering she helped turn their baby into, what they're doing to Josie, which this episode we learned there's some aftermath effects of Josie's, which I'm sure Dr. Hedwood definitely didn't mention any of that of like what Josie's going through, because it's unprecedented territory necessarily, because I think even compared to Bob's circumstances, her situation was a little different, because even Ben says it later on, it's like she's kind of a miracle. She was lost to not only did she survive being the severe frostbite all over her body, she was able to recover thanks to like all the stuff she went through. So she is more of a miracle than anything else. But it seems like that what she went through is now affecting different parts of her body to the point like her right leg or whatever. It's like, I think it was one of her legs. I think it was her right leg is like numb, and now it's kind of it's in different spots. So it's like now it's going to be a thing of like, cool. Makes me wonder if you've ever seen the show Haven. I'm curious if she's going to end up like Nathan, because it is a medical condition that is, I believe, it is real, where you basically can't feel anything. Granted, Nathan's situation from Haven, he thought it was just that, but it's like no, he couldn't feel anything because it was supernatural affliction that made it so he couldn't feel anything. But Josie's literally in that same spot as well, but it's getting to that point she can't feel anything, which I think is a little scary, because losing that sense of touch is probably going to make her feel distant, more and more distant from being human. But the thing is, Josie's an adult growing up, like, she knows what life was before this and after. The question is, will Andre and Zara's daughter be that fortunate? Like, because she is born with it, will her circumstances end up being different? Once again, Josie's kind of the trial run of like, let's see how it works out, and what happens to her could be setting the precedent for what ends up happening to Zara and Andre's baby. We'll have to wait and see, but I do like that. Obviously, he's not the biggest fan of Dr. Hedwood right now, because it's like what she did. And so he's like, cool, bringing in the family doctor because I don't trust you. That's why I had her looking after Wilford instead of you. So, but now it's like the two doctors going back and forth, because Pelton, she's calling out Dr. Hedwood for being unethical and doing all this. And Zara's like, no, I wanted to give my baby the best shot, because she's also saying like, it isn't just about my baby. We're going to need more people like Josie, who can survive the cold. Like, the more people they have kind of armed up and ready for that, like anytime some issues arise, for one, it isn't just on one person, because also if something happens to Josie, they're up shit's creek without a paddle. So it is important to have more than one person, which is also kind of sad, because it's like, well, it almost makes it seem like you're preparing your daughter for that, but it's also like, right, giving your daughter the best tools to survive in the world just in case things don't work out. And it is a thing of, you know, because it is going to take a long time for a lot of those spots around Earth to heat up, but it's like, right, kind of carry on that torch, because we don't know if that's her, like, how much of that is going to be hereditary. I don't know if that's come up yet. So, like, what if Josie and Andre's daughter has a child of their own eventually? Will those genes, like, pass down to them as well, or is it, you know, is it just questions like that? So, but, you know, and Dr. Hedwood is saying, like, right, the main killer is the code, so all we're doing is fighting that, you know, trying to ensure humanity's survival. It's just like, yeah, trying to justify what you're doing, because, you know, even Frankenstein had his reasons for doing what he did. You know, it comes down to just the ethics of it all, is what it mainly comes down to, so. But it is a celebratory time, sadly, for Andre. There are other things going on. The tree where all the names are being placed was lit on fire. Someone set it on fire on purpose. So now it's like, cool. If this attack, it could be like, oh, is this an attack because someone doesn't like me? Or is it because this has to be an issue about New Eden? And I love at one point, Bess is like, oh, that's so cute that you think those two things are mutually exclusive. You know, it's like, right, you know? People can hate you for two reasons, Andre. For the New Eden thing and for you just being you. So, because I even love it later on being like, oh yeah, Audrey hates your guts, so she could be behind this. And I love that. It's like, Andre's like, thanks, Bess. You've literally described so many people, because there's a lot of people on this train who hate me. I was initially jumping around a bit. I was thinking it would be Pike, but I was like, would he really go that far? And I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. Once again, him and Andre have had their beefs for a long time, and I think it's just finally culminated to everything, because I think it is the thing that Andre's having a great, like, everything's coming up Andre. He's the leader of the train. Andre kind of took his woman from him, because as long as Ruth is on this path wanting to leave all the dark times behind, which kind of includes him in his mind, so it's like, right, so he took that away from me. I had this special position being her right hand in this rebellion, and now I'm kind of lost, because Andre kind of gave him the purpose of being like, oh, I'm the killer, once again, Terrence, and that kind of screwed Pike up for a while. I think all of it's just been slowly building, and just Pike's just like finally had enough of Andre. You're having a baby, you're getting celebrated. It's like, you're not the great hero people think you are. Ruth is better than you. She would lead this train. But it's also like, do you only want Ruth to lead because you do believe she's a better leader, or is it just because of the position that you had where you felt like you finally had a purpose again? That, you know, with Ruth, like, you feel like you can only be in service. The best version of you, he even said to himself last episode, the best version of himself was when he served to right hand to her rebellion. So I think all that culminates in his hatred for Andre, which, like I said, it was already a rocky relationship. This just added more fuel to the literal and proverbial fire. Bess immediately recognized what was used as kind of the accelerant, ethanol, so they end up checking it with LJ and Oz about, like, because they're selling alcohol and stuff like that, which I love. There's a bet on, like, when the baby's going to come, how big the baby's going to be and stuff like that. It's like, I guess you got to get your entertainment and your gambling in some shape or form. But, yeah, LJ didn't appreciate that. Because I guess in LJ's mind, too, it's like, after we helped you take back the train, Andre, being by your side, even though it was last minute because I was so certain that Wilford was going to win, but now, like, I had to make sure that you knew I was on your side. It's like, yeah, like, we're loyal citizens just doing our own thing, essentially, so. I also love he found out that, like, OZ's the one kind of running, like, this underground bar and stuff like that, because he's like, yeah, we take some of this extra stuff and we either use it for lights, this, and the rest gets used as alcohol. And, like, Andre was like, I had no idea you were capable of Z. He's like, you know, it's like the tail duty, like, you either adapt or die. But sadly, someone was jacking his alcohol, like, so now it's like, cool, and replaced it with water, so this wasn't just going to be a one-off fire. Whoever it was had a lot stashed away, so. since I did talk about him a little earlier, let's circle back to the whole Pike and Ruth thing. When they were talking and stuff like that, he was kind of giving her one more shot. Because obviously it's like the hospitality didn't fit. Like the suit, the outfit didn't fit like it used to, both in a literal and metaphorical sense. Because I think it is just a little snug, but it's also metaphorical because that suit, it's been so long. There's been so much in between that. I mean, she lost that position in hospitality even before she became the rebel leader in between seasons and even partway into this season. Because she was shoveling shit with Andre at one point in time when she sided with him. So it's just like, that's not who she is. Like, she thinks she's happy to be back in this position, trying to leave everything behind. But just like Pike can't forget, I don't think she can either. But it's a situation where they find themselves in this regard, because I think being with Pike will be a reminder of all of that. Even though she likes him, it was just kind of like their last hurrah last time, being, oh, we'll see you around and stuff like that. But he was giving her one more opportunity, and I guess it not working out is what kind of finally pushed him over the edge to do all of this. And I mean, I think it speaks volumes that when it was all said and done, he does, like, smash the device at the end. Now, that could just be like I'm covering my tracks, I don't want it to be known that I had it. But also, like, it seemed like he was struggling when he was listening to Audrey singing. I think it was just kind of like a thing of, like, I think a thin line between love and hate, which immediately when I think that, I could only think, what immediately comes to my mind is the Martin Lawrence movie. But regardless, I think either because he has a little bit of, like, it's a combination of just like, right, his love for Ruth and his hate for Andre. But I think it's also because there's a little bit of love and hate with Andre too, because Andre's like a brother to him and has been for a long time. And it's just like, once again, after everything they went through in the tale, but then what we got to experience in the series, that, like I said, there was a lot of ups and downs between them. So I think that love and hate is what kind of exists there. Plus there is the whole love situation of Ruth, which adds, like I said, more to the whole hating Andre thing. So like I said, I initially thought like, oh, he had his regrets because of just how pained he was about it. So he destroyed the Switch because it's like, oh, like he regrets what he did and he's trying to cover. But now in retrospect, it's like, well, he could easily just been covering his tracks, destroying it just so no one else finds it because he missed his opportunity. But does he regret killing Andre, attempting to kill Andre? Because now he's put himself at, because eventually everyone's going to be coming looking because he got super close at decapitating the king, essentially. So a little too close for comfort for a lot of people. And seeing the king bleed, it's almost that thing of like, oh, I immediately think like Superman, like, oh, do gods bleed? And it's a thing of like, oh, like this might jumpstart some other people, not just Pike. Other people who might have issues with Andre deciding to, go for the jugular. But this could just be a thing of, going forward, no one else is going to try and step up to do that. It's just going to be Pike trying to avoid being caught for all that he did. Like, I wonder, is he going to tell Ruth? He probably won't. But Ruth, if she ever found out, would probably try to do everything she could to try and protect him. And I think that'd be interesting to see where that would potentially go. Obviously, everything with Zara and the baby turned out okay, but it was touch and go there because she was starting to freeze, which, Miss Hedwood was like, oh, yeah, Dr. Hedwood, he accounted for some of this as a possibility of everything, but luckily it all turned out okay. The baby came out fine. She came out of this, everything okay, so. But some other elements to the episode, we have Alex reading to Wilford, which I think is so interesting because he's constantly going in and out of the his slumber, and so I even love Andre being like, yeah, I initially wouldn't have wished that on my worst enemy, but I might be changing my mind. And I love that it's like, oh, he's like, I know it's someone really hates you, and Andre's like, cool, enjoy your death, have a nice death sleep, Wilford, because it's like, yeah, thanks for telling me something I obviously already know. Because he was drifting in and out. But I thought it was interesting, too, that while that was happening, he was reflecting on everything. Maybe it was just hearing Alex's voice, but a lot of his memories were, like, experiences he had with Alex, whether it's young Alex, whether it's stuff that we've seen him go through with Alex. And so she is reading to her dad, but it's like you could see some enjoyment in, like, seeing him weak and frail, like, because she was always at his mercy, and now she's the one that's in a more powerful position while he's kind of in this, in this state. And so it's like, right, we don't need him brain dead, so he can be useful to us. I even like at the end, she, like, wheelchairs him into, like, I think Big Alice, and just leaves him there. And it's just like, yeah, you're all alone, and, like, his body's not in a good enough position to really... But it's like, yeah, like, let me look at this scenery. It looked like something was playing on a TV, and she just wanted him just to stay there. It's just like, I think for Alex, it's just kind of like, yeah, the boogeyman isn't as scary anymore. It's like, oh, here you are, all alone, no one. Audrey wants to be there for you, but even Bess talked to Audrey about everything. Bess saying, like, whatever you need to do, I need you to hurry up and hit rock bottom so you can go back being the Audrey you were before. And because she was saying, like, right, the Audrey I knew before was a healer, so, like, clean yourself up because you're kind of a mess right now, becoming what Wilford wanted you to be. It's like, we need the old Audrey back, and maybe her singing at the end like that is her becoming that again. Who knows? And at least putting her in the right step in the right direction. Maybe her singing like that did on some level heal Pike. And, maybe he's on the path to healing. Once again, he could just be, no, I'm just covering my tracks. It's hard to really say what's 100% in Pike's mind right now, because I don't think he's in his right mind. He's letting his emotions kind of get the best of his anger, in particular, consume him. But some other elements to this episode, we have Psyche hanging out with Javi, because because he can't have Javi on, like, taking charge of the train, like, engineering right now, considering, like, the state that he's in. But the two of them working together could be the thing necessary to fix him, because it's like Sykes was Wilford's right-hand man, so, like, out of anyone, she would know how to potentially help Javi. And so she ends up talking to Javi, and the fact is they were paired together, I was like, wait, did she go through the same thing? And it seems like it, because I was about to say because of the large scar across her face. Well, she asked Javi, does he remember it? And she's like, I don't even remember what I did to piss Wilford off. But she's like, I do remember one initial thought I had is knowing that it wasn't the dog's fault. Even she's like, I know how jacked up that is to think. But like for her, that thought that was something that first came to her mind was what really jacked her up. So, Javi, knowing that obviously like someone else went through it, maybe thought the same thing, because he doesn't, it's not like he sees Wilford, he just sees the dog, and maybe that's a little indicative. I don't know. That is like, right, this animal that did this to you, like you feel bad for it because you realize like, no, it's not its fault, it's just responding to what its master told. It's like a weapon is just a weapon until you put it in someone's hands, and that's, so maybe that's kind of what they're getting across. But I do like that there's kind of like a bond that's kind of being created between them. Sadly, a bond based on trauma, but I mean, hell, that's kind of Snowpiercer as a whole, isn't it? Everyone group bonding through trauma, so. But the other pairing we had is Ben and Josie. She opens up to him about her situation, because Dr. Hedwood's the only one who knows about it currently, so she opens up to Ben about it, and obviously him kind of getting her in the engineer's chair, like showing off everything. Once again, commenting on her kind of being the miracle that she is. And obviously both of them talking about their love, I even love that line from Bennett where it was basically like, right, he had this 15-year relationship with Melanie. They were kind of off on their own island, and it's just kind of like wishing you had been able to stay on that island now that she's gone, because he thinks about her every day. And obviously Josie's like, yeah, I know that too. And it's like, well, at least your soulmate's still alive. And she's like, yeah, but the baby bells are literally playing, Ben. But he's like, yeah, but at least I know Andre still loves you. And it's like, yeah, it is kind of a complicated thing. So I was wondering, like, the way they were shaping that up, I was like, are these two about to? And they ultimately, like, do their thing. But yeah, I'm curious what that means for them. Like, is that going to become a relationship, or was it just kind of a one-time thing of like, yeah, we were both missing and lamenting about the people we can't be with. Melanie, because she's not here and gone, potentially. I'm still like up in the air on whether I'm 100% believe she's gone. I think she's still alive, but that's just me holding out hope on some level, but also just like, I don't know how she would have survived. I don't know. But then, like, with the Zara and Andre and Josie, kind of a little bit of a love triangle thing. I don't know. I'm curious to see how that plays out, whether that continues to be a thing or just Josie decided to just kind of bury that after this situation with Ben. Who knows? Either way, it's definitely going to be really interesting to see where all of this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.